was this the most chaotic trade deadline that you can remember?
But with the Jets, it does make sense because they absolutely need to blow this up and start again. Now, I think they did brilliantly when you look at it one way. The value that they've got, they won both those trades.
Yeah, the Colts gave him an offer that Darren Moore quite literally could not refuse. And that's the thing as well. What that does show for the Colts, going over to that now, is that they're all in on Daniel Jones. I feel like you have to now after you've
they haven't
made
got a
this
choice.
move. I feel like you have to pay Daniel Jones.
They're not drafting a quarterback in the first round now, so they are marrying themselves to Daniel Jones.
You've got two teams that are really desperate to make a statement.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a standalone window like this. This is the perfect opportunity for them to make a statement. Obviously, the Colts lost in an ugly way on Sunday. 5 turnovers from Daniel Jones. It was bad. So they wanted to put that right. And then the Falcons, they know they're better than the 3-5 record they have. But they know they're better than that.
Hello, everyone. Cecil Martin here.
Hey, this is Hunter Henry.
What's up, man? This is Max Crosby, part of Raider Nation.
Hey, this is Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman.
Hey, it's Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, this is Jerry Judy, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, and you're listening to the 14-Yard NFL Podcast.
Week 10 is here, which means we're officially into the second half now of the 2025 NFL season. And what a week it is shaping up to be. Obviously, the trade deadline did not disappoint. There were contenders who loaded up on talent. There were a few surprise moves shaking up the league. Some teams that we thought would be sellers weren't sellers. Other teams that we didn't think would be sellers were massive sellers. And we've also got some really fun games coming up this week as well, especially in primetime. Sunday and Monday Night Football looks great. And obviously, there's the return of the NFL International Series 2. You're listening to 14 Yards NFL Podcast. Welcome back if you are a regular listener. It's great to have you with us again. And if you're new around here, I'm Sam Moores, the host of the main show from the 14 Yards Network, which is the home for British commentary in the NFL. Our network ranges from team-specific podcasts to written content on the website to this main show, our weekly deep dive on everything happening across the league. And if you enjoy the show, please make sure to subscribe on your preferred platform, whether it be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on YouTube if you're watching this, and do leave us a review or a comment as well. It really does help us reach more NFL fans, both in the UK and across the pond too. Joining me to do talk about all the trade deadline moves. We're also going to look ahead to the first ever NFL Berlin game and predict every Week 10 matchup against the spread. Joining me to do that is a regular guest on the podcast, Ben Isaacs, who is, of course, an NFL writer and broadcaster based here in the UK. He's the author of the American Football Revolution, which tells the story of how Britain fell in love with the NFL. Welcome back to the podcast, Ben. Was this the most chaotic trade deadline that you can remember?
It certainly felt like there was stuff flying around everywhere, and we were kind of bombarded by narratives. Partly the Cowboys, partly the Jets, partly the Colts. Those three, in terms of narratives, were the strongest. We certainly learned a lot about how those teams view themselves right now, so that was interesting.
Yeah, certainly. And normally you're just sat around waiting for something to happen, whereas this time it was just thrown at us, which was new. Normally, is be a couple of deals maybe on the day. Well, there was 12 in the final sort of 24 hours or so. So there were tons of deals around the league, which was really fun to follow, especially for me when I was busy on Tuesday night. I looked up at my phone and I had a 2-hour drive, and there were a couple deals done in that time. And I'm like, hang on a minute, what the hell? My phone was just blowing up, but I couldn't. My phone was on lock when the map was on, so I couldn't actually see the notification. I could just see that Bleacher Report popping up.
That's for the best. That's for the best. You don't want to be trying to drive while all that was going on. Like, they've done what?
Yeah, I know. I just so I could see something was happening, but I had no idea what the hell was happening. So I was just the rest of the journey, I was just thinking in my head, what the hell was going on here? It was a bit of fun whilst driving on Tuesday night. Alongside all the trade talk and the game previews, I'll also be giving you my 5 must-have players for your lineup in Fantasy Gameday's Week 10 Sunday Stars competition as well. Remember, if you're new to the app, you can actually get a free £7.50 bet when you sign up using the code FULL10. That's FULL10. You get new users will get a £7.50 in free bets added to their account after they deposit and enter their first lineup on the app. Just make sure to use the code FULL10 when you sign up. And always please remember to gamble responsibly, and only if you're 18 or over and based in the UK or Northern Ireland. But before we dive into the podcast as a whole, though, we just wanted to take a moment to send our thoughts to the family, friends, and teammates of Cowboys defensive end Marshall Nealon following the tragic news that he passed away earlier this morning at the age of 24. Nealon was a second-round pick out of Western Michigan in 2024 and scored his first NFL touchdown on Monday night when he recovered a blocked punt against the Cardinals. This is just terribly sad news to see this afternoon, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah, after the biggest game of his career, and just another reminder that we don't know what is going on in other people's heads, that we may see someone on TV or even in our personal lives and think that we know how they're feeling, what is going on with them. We often don't. And here's someone who, after the biggest game of his career, you feel like, you've got the world at your feet. That's how we would kind of look at someone like that they must feel that, that they're invincible. And, the report out there from Frisco police is that it's a possible suicide, an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, and there had been a police chase before then. Frisco is where the Cowboys facilities are, that incredible facility, the Star at Frisco, where that's their training base and their headquarters. Very sad. And for all the kind of talk that we've had about what the Cowboys were doing with their defense that has been going on this week, it kind of pales into insignificance with this, and it feels a bit weird kind of talking about the big move that they made, and for this to happen so soon afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, everyone here at Full 10 Yards sends their deepest condolences to those who knew and loved him. Okay, we'll start the podcast by looking back at a very chaotic final 24 hours or so of the period where the NFL teams could make a trade. No fewer than 12 trades happened in that period, leading up to the 9 p.m. UK time deadline on Tuesday. The first move was on Monday, so the Dolphins trade pass rusher Jaden Phillips to the Eagles for a third-round pick on Monday afternoon. He was reunited with Vic Fangio. Then things went quiet until Jerry Jones said to Stephen A. Smith on Monday ahead of the Cowboys game with the Cardinals that Dallas had agreed to trade someone in principle, trade for someone in principle. And he didn't shut the door to another. He even said there could be 2 moves, another extra moves. So there obviously were 2, not 3. But that stirred things up on Monday night. Then moments before the game on Monday night, another trade was reported. This one involving the Titans, who had already moved on from defensive backs Travis Brownlee and Roger McCreary in recent weeks. They agreed to send pass rusher Draymond Jones to Baltimore for a conditional 5th-round pick. He's found some form lately. He's got 4.5 sacks in his last 4 games. And then on the Tuesday, Dallas kicked it off with that trade that Jerry Jones was hinting. He announced a deal with the Bengals for out-of-favor linebacker Logan Wilson. And then shortly after, the Jags struck a deal with the Raiders for their unhappy star receiver Jacoby Myers. Again, it was a pretty small amount of compensation because Myers is a free agent this offseason. And then shortly after that deal was announced, I went out for the evening, as I said, and by the time I parked my car after that 2-hour drive, Sauce Gardner was a Colt, Rashid Shaheed was a Seahawk,
Yeah.
Shayinka was a Bear, and then got out of the car, and the deals weren't done there. After netting the 2 first-round picks for the Sauce Gardner trade, the Jets got another one in 27 and a second in next year's draft as well, and former first-round pick Marcy Smith for Quinnen Williams. And they also sent defensive back Jasiah Taylor to the Chargers for a 2028 conditional 7th as well. And then finally, the Chargers reacted to the news that Joe Alt was heading on to season-ending IR by making a deal with the Saints for Trevor Penning, who has struggled since being drafted in the first round in 2022. Right, there's only one place to start, and that's with the Jets. Obviously, a lot of talk would be, would the Dolphins, sell everything they've got? Would the Browns sell everything that they've got? In the end, it was the Jets who sold their viable assets. Did that surprise you?
Yes and no. in that I felt, at least one team was going to be like, look, let's go full on rebuild. Now, the Browns were certainly contenders there, but they did some trading around the draft, which I think they've already done enough to position themselves to get potentially whatever quarterback they want in the draft next year. So I thought, okay, well, they don't need to do too much. The Dolphins, I mean, it looks like they've started a fire sale, that they have accepted that they are going to have to bottom out. It does, to me, suggest that there will be a coaching change. How much faith they've got in Tua, I don't know. And I put on Twitter, I feel for people who are going to that game in Madrid, where they're going to see the Dolphins, who seem like they've given up on the season, and the Washington Commanders, who have looked pretty poor all season and are without their star player. So that's not a lot of fun for the fans in Spain. But with the Jets, it does make sense, because they absolutely need to blow this up and start again. Now, I think they did brilliantly when you look at it one way. The value that they've got, they won both those trades.
Yeah.
So Sauce Gardner has regressed. I still think he's a really good player. I still think he's like a top 10 cornerback, and I think we'll get onto what it means for the Colts. But for the Jets, getting what they got for him, those 2 first-round picks, I think is brilliant value. Absolutely brilliant. With Quinnen Williams, also, that's the salary. Like, he's on a very salary-heavy contract rather than it be all tied up in bonuses. So the Cowboys have got to deal with that. He's going to be 28 soon. He's not as young as he feels. He's not like I think this was a great move for the Jets. However, the thing that holds me back from feeling like this is an absolute home run is that those are 2 of their best players, despite the fact that they have regressed. There's still 2 of their best players, and they've got to hit on those draft picks. So yeah, they've got a pile of draft picks. If they hit on them, then great. They are going to be a young roster with young stars. So it'll be cheap, and they'll be able to add some high price free agents to kind of, it could be great. But I don't know how much I trust ownership. I don't know how much I trust the GM there. You've got an owner there who's been openly criticizing Justin Fields. Like, fine for him to be kind of saying those things privately or thinking those things. To put those things out there is just negligent leadership of an organization. You should not be doing it. And Jordan Travis, the quarterback from Florida State, who they drafted in the previous draft, who had suffered a really bad injury at Florida State, and he was never able to get himself healthy again. Jordan Travis said, when this story came out about Justin Fields, that Woody Johnson had come up to him and just said, when are you going to be healthy? Not any kind of like, how's it progressing? How are you feeling? And the fact that he made a point of coming out and saying that at that point makes me feel like that had sat with him for a long time, and he was going to keep it to himself until he realized, wait there, this is clearly how he is, and this is how he behaves. Jets fans, I'm sure, won't be kind of weeping that they've lost these 2 players, because the season isn't going anywhere. It's all well and good to have those better players. Like, it's not going to get much worse for the Jets just because they don't have these players. But kind of a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. They've got to really hit on those draft picks to have actually won the trade. Like, right now, they have won the trade, because a first round pick could be anything. You could draft the best player in the league. That can happen. But until you've done it, you haven't. It's just hope. And hope is great. But if you draft the wrong person, then it was a waste. And it's obviously it is not risk-free. But I think they did the right thing. I just don't trust them to do the right thing with the right thing, if you see what I mean.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I think the Jets, you'd like to think that they have won this trade, but it's just what they do with those picks. A very, very similar scenario with Miami. Miami in 2020 and 2021 had 5 first-round picks. realistically, the only one of those that's been a real success is Jalen Waddle. And even then, he's had his injury problems. Jalen Phillips is no longer in the team. Noah Igbenogany is no longer with the team. To again signed to an extension, but again they're looking to move off him. And Austin Jackson is a decent right tackle, but cannot stay healthy. Like that's those were 5 first-round picks, so they had 2 more that they then want to spend on Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb. And again, Tyreek Hill will no longer be on the team next year. You'd like to think Bradley Chubb probably will not be on this team next year. So that's 7 first-round picks there. It did get them 2 playoff runs, which I mean, fair play, but no playoff win to come of it. So the Jets do have to be careful here with who they pick, because then again, the first-round picks don't necessarily mean much. But Darren Morgay's got a really fun project for himself to try and find those players, because they did have star players that he could build around there. They did have those cornerstone corner, defensive linemen. They did have that. Obviously, it makes sense. It makes sense to reset, but that is the only thing. It's like, will you find players as good as those guys? That is the only question. But then I get especially the source move for both sides, especially but they didn't want to move off Sauce Gardner. They literally extended him a couple of months ago. But the Colts gave him an offer that Darren Morgan quite literally could not refuse, and that's the thing as well. What that does show for the Colts, going over to that now, is that they're all in on Daniel Jones. But that's what this does. Yeah, again, this is a very uncharacteristic move from Chris Ballard. He never does trades. He's always they pay their own guys. The Colts, this is a very un-Chris Ballard move. So but then his job security this year, because of how well it's gone, is no longer in question. So you can afford to make a move like this and really gamble. Again, he really makes a big move in free agency. They've now made an aggressive move, and they're going to spend big on Daniel Jones because he is a free agent this offseason as well. They obviously feel like they have something there, but this is the real telling moment really for the Colts. And who can disagree with them? They have the best record in the AFC, tied to the Patriots. Would I personally make the move? Not for that price. I think I like the premise of the move. I think we talked about it on the podcast a couple of years ago. We said get Lou Anarumo, another player in the secondary, because that's what the Colt defense need, especially after Xavier Howard retired just out of nowhere. They've got it. It's just the price now. It shows that they are all in on Daniel Jones, and that's the thing here, because the Giants did that a couple of years ago. Let's get back to that. Brian Daboll's first season. The Giants also started the season 7-2, right? They had a superstar running back in Saquon Barkley. He got them to the playoffs. It was his first full season since his rookie year. They're playing great. And they won that playoff game. 2 years later, they cut Daniel Jones after giving him that contract because of this. And they were 7-2. They had a star running back who was probably the reason why the team were winning. Don't get me wrong, Daniel Jones played great. This is the best he's ever looked in his career. He has played well. But we saw on Sunday, when that it's the game against his 2 worst games of the season have come against really heavy pass rushing teams, with the Rams and the Steelers too. They've got 3 of the best pass rushers in the league, sort of top 10, 15 pass rushers in the league on those teams. And he didn't handle the pressure very well. There's 7 turnover he plays in those 2 games. He has 4 the rest of the year, and that's the thing there. And again, but you can't deny that he's not earned that, because of the way he's played the rest of the. So it's so tough, this scenario. The Colts have gone all in on Daniel Jones. They're gonna pay him in the off season, which will take up most of their cap room now, because I feel like you have to now after you've
they haven't
made
got a
this
choice.
move. You have to pay Daniel Jones.
They're not drafting a quarterback in the first round now, so they are marrying themselves to Daniel Jones. And if you want to look at, especially if you look at it before the Steelers game last weekend, if you look at just this season in isolation, you'd feel, well, yes, absolutely, Daniel Jones is the long-term starter there. But as you rightly pointed out, we would have said the exact same thing in New York, in pretty much the exact same circumstances, with a running back kind of carrying the team. I really like what Daniel Jones has done. Everyone is on the same page with that. how confident am I that he can do that year in, year out? The quarterbacks who do that year in, year out are the elite quarterbacks. The quarterbacks who do that year in, year out are named Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow. That's the end of the list. Those are the 4 quarterbacks who do it year in, year out. Now, that's
And you're
not
competing
to
with
say,
those guys in the playoffs as well. That's the thing.
yes, which is exactly why you need Sauce Gardner.
Yeah.
So the people want to say certain quarterbacks are elite. In my eyes, there are 4 elite quarterbacks, and I've just named them. And those ones, year in, year out, when they are healthy, they will get it done constantly. Now, for the other 28 teams, that doesn't mean that you don't give someone a long-term contract because you think, okay, well, they're not one of the top 4 in the league, because I wouldn't put Jalen Hurts in that list. But, I can't imagine the Eagles like, we don't know about this guy. Daniel Jones has had far more bad games in his career and has had more bad seasons in his career. Now, we've seen Sam Darnold have very bad seasons in his career, and we're seeing him having a brilliant one now off the back of one that was brilliant for most of last year at Minnesota until it got towards the playoffs and he kind of turned into a pumpkin. I want to see Daniel Jones not turn into a pumpkin before I think, okay, the Colts have got this figured out. Now, the Colts do think they've got this figured out. You don't make this move unless you are very confident that you are set right now, that you don't need to worry about high-end draft picks. You don't have to worry. You've got everything you need in the building to make a Super Bowl run. Let me be clear on this. If the Colts do not make a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, that trade for Sauce Gardner was a waste. That is the target. If that's the sort of trade that you're making and you've got this record right now, it's Super Bowl or bust. It isn't we want to be in playoff contention like you said about the Dolphins with all those draft picks. They made the playoffs twice, didn't win a game. We're in playoff contention. You don't make these moves to be in playoff contention, to be in the conversation. You do it to get to Super Bowl Sunday. Am I confident they are going to make a Super Bowl in the next 3 years? I'll be honest, no. I have more faith in a handful of other teams in the AFC. That's the fact of the matter. I love what they've done. I think they've done the right thing. It could just be an absolute disaster. It's win or bust. They've either prevented themselves from putting young, high-end talent on the team, but are winning a Super Bowl, or they're stopping themselves from putting young, high-end talent on the team and have got a problem because they've got holes in the roster. It's gonna be fun. Sauce Gardner's gonna make his Colts debut in Berlin, a game that may be unwatchable because the Falcons seem terrible. The Colts are going to cruise into the playoffs. Sauce Gardner will then have to really earn his money against the best quarterbacks in the AFC. I'm fascinated to see how it plays out.
Yeah, you're right there. It's the move that a Super Bowl contender makes. That you're completely right there. Do I think that it's worth the money? No, I don't. And that's the thing. You got to package the Daniel Jones contract into the trade. When you actually think about it, it's 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner and the Daniel Jones contract. That's what it is now. And do I think it's worth it? No. I've seen my own team do this twice with Ryan Tannehill and then Tua. Off one good year, they've paid them a big money and then you're stuck for a couple of years, and then the rest of the team can't be good luck. Maybe it's just me that's hurting from this, but I've seen many teams do it. Many teams have done it. The Giants did it. Daniel Jones.
We've seen it so many times, and what happens is that a general manager brings in a quarterback, whether they've drafted him, they've made a trade, or it's a free agent pickup, and they will look at their best performances and say, that's the real Daniel Jones, or that's the real Tua, that's the real Kirk Cousins, that's the real Sam Darnold. And they look at the bad performances and consider those to be an aberration, not wanting to look at the fact that the bad performances outweigh the good performances. Now, there were plenty of people who felt that, when Jared Goff was off to the Lions, that was basically the end of his career, and he's actually improved. And that was him being with Sean McVay. What better coach could a quarterback be with? And he's improved away from Sean McVay. So it's not like he was bad. It's not like people were like, oh, God, Jared Goff's a bust. But it was felt, well, Jared Goff isn't as good as he was billed. And he's still not what I would call an elite quarterback. But he has done brilliantly well in Detroit after doing pretty well in LA. Maybe Daniel Jones is going to have an arc like that. Maybe Sam Darnold is. Maybe we're going to look back at those bad seasons that they had and be like, oh, it shows you shouldn't write these quarterbacks off. But if you look at their careers, there have been more bad games than good. And it's what you choose to tell yourself. I think for both of them, it's not the worst games they've had. It's not the best games they've had. It's somewhere in the middle. And if you look at the somewhere in the middle for Daniel Jones, will the contract reflect that version? I don't think it will. The contract will reflect the best games that he's had. And that's what agents are for. And that's how teams can get themselves into trouble. I could be totally wrong on Daniel Jones. He could end up being one of the top 8 quarterbacks in the league. I'm not convinced he will, but good luck to him and good luck to the Colts, because I like to see this aggression, as a neutral. If I was a Colts fan, I'd feel like, well, this is going to be a hell of a roller coaster for the next couple of years, because win or bust is fun but scary. The highs are high, but the lows are really low, because you think, oh, we mortgaged our future, and what we got was a divisional round playoff game.
Absolutely, yeah. And then, as for the Quinn Williams to the Cowboys, like, again, I much prefer this from the Jets angle as well. Like, he is having a tremendous season against the run. He was an honourable mention in our All-Pro team last week. He's having a great season. He's been a real bright light in this like terrible Steve Wilkes defense, and I think he improves the Cowboys defense, which is what he's there to do. But I think what this does show is how little compensation they got from Micah Parsons more than anything. Like,
yes.
That's what it does show, because a first and a second is not a million miles away from the 2 firsts they got for Micah Parsons.
And
they're
stuck with a really bad contract here.
Yeah, no disrespect to Quinn Williams, but Micah Parsons is in a premier position and is a top 5 player in the league. Like, Quinn Williams is a good player. Like I said, close to an All-Pro player, like if not an All-Pro player. But Micah Parsons is special, and the contracts aren't that much. And Greg Rosenthal pointed this out on Twitter this week. Like, they haven't got much left from that conversation. They just have 6 picks in this year's draft, 7 from next year, and that first from Green Bay isn't that much different in value to a second. Like the Quinn Williams. So really, there's nothing left really. So you're basically back to square one. You swap Micah Parsons and Miles Smith for Quinn Williams and Kenny Clark. That's basically what they've done. Again, I think the Cowboys have lost that trade. Really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the Micah Parsons trade looked bad on the day, and it looks worse now. And the Jets will get one of the Cowboys' first round picks, and obviously they get the highest one of those, which the fact that we're halfway through the season and Dallas have won 3 games, that is going to be a reasonably high pick, whereas the Packers one is going to be, at worst in the mid-20s, I would say. So the Cowboys will not have much to show for it. They've got a player who, like I say, is about to turn 28, and they've got to pay a lot of money to. The idea that they would spend as much draft capital, it's not as much as the Colts did, and they had more to spare than the Colts did. But the Colts are looking at their season and their team right now and thinking, we've got a Super Bowl window that might be open for a very short period. The Cowboys have won 3 games this year. 3 games. They were outclassed by the Cardinals with a backup quarterback just days ago. You make a move like this, and yeah, of course, they had to do something. But this season is a lost season. If Cowboys fans saw that deal and thought, there we go, now we're making the playoffs, now we're going to compete for the NFC East, I don't think anyone's thinking that. I think Cowboys fans will feel like, okay, well, the run defense is going to be greatly improved. But they're in a hole. They're 3-5-1. Why make a move like that when you're probably not going to make the playoffs? I know it's not super scientific, but where ESPN has their probabilities based on record of opponents and all that sort of stuff, that the Cowboys have got a 7% chance of making the playoffs. Why why would you make this move when the season is almost done? And I'm sure when you're in the buildings, you don't give up, but you got to be realistic. Do you do this now, or do you wait for the draft and use those picks? Because if they have a terrible season and they pick like 4th or 5th, they're going to get much better value. It kind of drove me crazy, and and that's looking at it away from obviously a tragic event that they've just had that no one could have predicted. You know, we can criticize Jerry Jones and the Cowboys for a lack of vision for the trade, but obviously there's no way to predict that something like that is going to happen. The season is in absolute tatters for the Cowboys, and they don't even have a draft haul to show for it. They are going to be picking as if they had a really good season, and that is a really bad position to be in. They should never have got rid of Micah Parsons.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with you. But looking at the other moves, I like most of them for both teams as well, to be fair. The Cody Myers trade makes sense for both teams, especially you wanted to go out, and especially with Travis Hunter going on IR. It makes all sense in the world. Rashid Shaheed, I love that trade. You know, he was phenomenal under Clint Kubiak in New Orleans last year before obviously the offensive line went and everyone, and then the offense just went to pot. But like we saw in the first 3 games last season, what he could be in this offense. I'm really excited to see him in Seattle. The Ravens needed some pass rush, so I can't critique that move. As I said, for like the Eagles needed some pass rush. Jalen Phillips makes sense. You reunited him with Vic Fangio as well. And he doesn't have to be like the guy as well, which, you know, when he doesn't have to play as much as he did in Miami, like he can get all the pressure, be a triple finishing with less. You'd like to think that could change in Philadelphia. It's a really good spot for a pass rusher to be. And then if the Dolphins, they've essentially, instead of letting him go in free agency and getting a comp pick in 2027, they've got the 3rd round pick in 2026. So again, that makes sense for them. And then for the Chargers, like Trevor Penning's well for punt for a 6th round pick. Like hopefully they'll be hoping they can fix him, whether he plays at guard or tackle, we don't know. But again, they need some help on the offensive line. So hopefully that works as well.
I just want to say with the Shaheed deal, which obviously there was very good value, a 4th round pick and a 5th round pick. They needed another option to be able to kind of just take that next step. I think we all are impressed by what the Seahawks have done and the way that Sam Darnold's played, just giving him that weapon. They're absolutely in contention to win the NFC West, which is a tough division. The 49ers obviously, as always, completely ravaged by injuries, but are still grinding out wins. The Rams, I think, are the best team in that division. So the Seahawks are, you know, hanging tough in a very difficult division. They look 100% like a playoff team, and they're making a move to feel like, okay, well, we don't just want to make the playoffs. We want to win games in the playoffs. We want to win this division. Great move, great value. It's like the kind of Colts on a much smaller scale, in that it shows a statement of intent from the Seattle Seahawks, that they don't just think, okay, yeah, we've got enough, we'll do okay. It's like, no. Let's add another piece, especially with that value. And he hasn't got to be the main wide receiver there. He's just got to be a complementary wide receiver. Great move, makes sense for the Saints. They can just accumulate some capital. They're going absolutely nowhere right now, but the Seahawks just quietly going about their business and took a step up.
Yeah, and for Seattle as well, even if they don't win a division, they're much better than away from home than they are at home right now, which is very strange.
Yeah.
They got like a 14-game winning run away from home, which is just crazy. So yeah, something to certainly watch as we go into the playoffs. Okay, next up is DFS Stars, which is our weekly daily fantasy segment on the podcast this season, which identifies 5 must-have players in your lineup on Fantasy Gameday this Sunday, which is the UK's dedicated daily fantasy app. I can't believe this is our 10th week of doing this now. It's crazy how fast the season's gone. And it's an interesting week this week in terms of picks, because neither Jonathan Taylor nor Bijan Robinson are available for selection in the Sunday Stars competition this week. So there are plenty of different strategies to try. Before I give you mine for this week, let's see how my 5 DFS Stars from last week have got on first. And in short, it was pretty disappointing again. better than the week before. Again, but it's still disappointing, which is a shame because up until 2 weeks ago, we were really starting to get some momentum and we're finding the right players to win you guys some money. Again, as I said, it was nowhere near as bad as 2 weeks ago. Because 2 weeks ago, I mean, we got basically nothing from our captain. Butcher Robinson scored very low. But I do think there were better captain options out there than Ross 8 Brown, who I went with last week. He scored 18.7 points, which when doubled was 37.4 after catching 9 balls for 97 yards. And that's a pretty good day for a receiver, but he didn't find the end zone like he normally does against the Vikings, and that really let us down, really, to be honest with you. It wasn't to be. He ended week 9 as receiver 11, so not bad at all, but that was just better value for a captain out there. But it was at quarterback where things really started to go wrong. Because I picked Daniel Jones, and no, in terms of fantasy, his performance against the Steelers on Sunday isn't that bad because he's QB17, it's not terrible. Despite turning the ball over 5 times, but it was his steep price that was the issue. We gave up a lot to go get him at 7,800 last week. He absolutely was not worth it. Kareem Hunt, on the other hand, at running back, he was a very decent value pick. He from the end zone against the Bills as I expected him to. He was RB14 of the players available on Sundays. He was a great pick as the 31st most expensive running back of the players available in the pool last Sunday. Receiver Wanda Robinson was an alright choice. He got the high volume of targets I expected him to get, putting in 9 balls of 46 yards. He was the 22nd highest scoring receiver of the players available last week, which is sort of in line with his value. It was 24th. But the real sort of downer this week was Tyler Warren at tight end. Obviously, he's the most expensive tight end. He had his worst week of the season. He was tight end 26th fantasy this week after a measly 26 yards against the Steelers. And obviously, he took up a major part of our budget, coming in as the most expensive tight end in week 9. So unfortunately, that was a terrible pick. The 2 Colts guys really let us down massively. If you, listener, are sat there fancying getting involved with the Fantasy Gameday app, new users can actually get a free £7.50 game entry if you sign up to Fantasy Gameday with the code FULL10. That's FULL10. That's right, new users get that free game credit added to their account when they enter their first lineup on the app, which is available on both the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. Okay, it's time for my 5 players that you need to have in your daily fantasy lineup this Sunday on Fantasy Gameday. As always, I'll start with my pick for my captain, which is the player in your lineup that gets total points. And with 2 of the 3 big running backs being out of the pool this week, playing in Berlin, and Christian McCaffrey, who is in the pool this week, but he's playing against the top Rams defense, I've gone for a receiver as my captain again this week. And there's only one receiver that I could choose in that scenario. I'm, of course, talking about Jackson Smith in Jigba, who has the highest target share in the NFL at a whopping 38.16%, and he has amassed a massive 4.41 yards per route run, which only Puka Nacua can come anywhere near. Like really, most guys are sort of at about 2 yards. He's the only person who can come anywhere close to Jackson Smith and Jigba. Only 16 receivers are averaging above 2.2 yards per route run, so JSN is a must for me at 8,400, which is cheaper than Christian McCaffrey, and I just feel like he's going to get so much of the ball. As I said, he's got the highest target share in the entire NFL, so I feel like he's guaranteed points there. My quarterback pick for you guys this week is Jared Goff, who has a really favourable matchup in the Commanders' defense this Sunday. Only the Cowboys and the Bengals have been better opponents of fantasy QBs than Washington so far this year, and both those teams are on a bye week, so they are quite literally the best team you can pick against in terms of a QB fantasy pick. So I fancy Goff at 7,000. Again, it's quite a good value, especially when you can consider Daniel Jones was 7,800 last week. It puts them QB 9 in terms of price. Washington looks to have checked out on the season really. They've lost their best corner, Marshall Lattimore, to his long-term injury. So I think Goff could have a field day on Sunday. I'm going for Quinton Judkins at running back, who has been a success for us in previous weeks. We're going over him again. He's going against the Jets defensive line that's traded away its best run defender. And even with Quinnen Williams, that Jets defense was still surrendering over 100 rushing yards per game. So I think it's a good pick because Judkins is quite literally the Browns offense. He's going to see so much of the ball. The Jets have a pretty favourable defense for fantasy running backs as well. They're averaging 19.9 points per game when facing the Jets defense. So because of that, I just love Judkins at 5,800, which makes him the 11th most expensive running back. A receiver, my recommendation for the week is Tater McMillan, who is another returning player to the segment. He is the Panthers' #1 target. He's going up against the Saints defense. Has allowed 11 touchdowns to receivers already this season, and obviously he's having a stellar rookie year. 8th highest EPA of all receivers in the league right now, 15th highest target share of all receivers as well. So I fancy him to find the end zone on Sunday, which makes him pretty good value as the 17th most expensive receiver, because you know he's going to get sort of almost top 10 receiver level in the league targets. If he can find the end zone, you're on to a winner in fantasy this week with McMillan. And last time I picked him to do this, he actually got 2 touchdowns against the Cowboys. So, expecting big things from him. And then finally, I've gone for another rookie for my tight end. I've gone for Mason Taylor of the Jets as my tight end pick. He has the 9th highest target share of all tight ends again. So, that Justin Fields is going to look his way. And obviously, Taylor caught his first career touchdown against the Bengals before the Jets bye as well. He's only going to get better, obviously, as a rookie. And coming out of the bye, you'd like to think he's going to take a step up now. I think he's a good value pick at just 3,000. He's a 16th most expensive tight end, and obviously most numbers say he's a 9th height, so he's in top 10 tight end level targets in the NFL at the moment. He's going to get at least 6 or 7 targets a game, so I just think he is tremendous value at just 3,000 in your budget. Right, that wraps up my 5 picks for this week's Sunday Stars competition on Fantasy Gameday. My 5 DFS stars for the week are Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jared Goff, Quinton Judkins, Tether McMillan, and Mason Taylor. Best of luck if you're playing along, and don't forget, new users can still get that free £7.50 bet when they sign up with the code FULL10. Just remember to please gamble responsibly, and only if you're 18 or over and based in the UK or Northern Ireland. All right, let's move on to week 10 now. We'll start by previewing the return of the international series. We've had 2 weeks without the extra window of football in the afternoon here in Europe. But good news, it's back for the next 2 weeks as the NFL returns to Europe. Up first is the Germany game, which will be held in its 3rd city. Obviously, it began in Munich at the Allianz Arena, home of Bayern Munich in 2022. Tom Brady and the Bucks beat the Seahawks in a close one that day. And then the league played 2 games in Frankfurt Deutsche Bank Park in 2023. Before returning to Munich last year with the Giants and Panthers, played in front of a record crowd in a game that went to overtime. That win in overtime was actually the start of Bryce Young's resurgence last season with the Panthers, standing in for Andy Dalton, who injured his thumb in a car accident. And now the NFL had to Berlin's Olympiastadion, which is the biggest stadium in Germany. It's hosted everything from the Olympics to the World Cup final in 2006. It hosted the Euros final between England and Spain last summer. And now it hosts a pretty fun game between the Colts, who obviously tied for the best record in the AFC, and the Falcons, who do have superstars on both sides of the ball as well. Hopefully we don't curse this game like we do with the London game. Obviously, we're saying it's one of the best we've ever seen. It was a terrible game, Ben. But in all seriousness, like the final London game, it's rare that a team with this many wins over 500 come overseas. It should be a good game, shouldn't it?
Yeah, and the Colts are obviously one of the stories right now. So the idea that we've got them in a separate window, there's such a big talking point because of the Source Garden trade, because of them pushing all their chips into the middle of the table, that I can't wait to see how they play. I don't trust the Falcons to really give them a game, if I'm honest. The Falcons are such an unreliable team. They've got such a bunch of angry fans in the UK that they are so frustrated, and I don't blame them. They are so frustrated. They might be the most frustrated fan base in the UK because there is some talent on that team. I hope they can give the Colts a game. I'm not convinced they can. I want to say something about the stadiums in Germany, and I think the fact that the NFL has not settled on a stadium in Germany has been to the detriment of the game in Germany. When they came to London, it was always clear we're going to be in London. We're going to be at Wembley. They messed around with Twickenham a little bit, but still were playing at Wembley. And obviously the Jags now have a separate deal with Wembley, even though there's an NFL stadium at Tottenham. So that's been great for those of us in London. Obviously, it's a bit of a pain for those people who have to travel. But the upside is that there has been a settled home. In Germany, which has at least as many fans of the NFL as the UK does, they've only had a handful of games. They're only getting 1 game now. It's gone down. The Olympic Stadium in Berlin. So I was there for a Champions League final. I don't know, about 10 years ago. It's Barcelona against Juventus. And it was a great weekend. I mean, it always is when you're in corporate hospitality. But that stadium is not like an NFL stadium, and it is not like the stadium in Frankfurt, and it's not like the stadium in Munich. It is really old fashioned, really old fashioned. It's got a lot of appeal, it's got a lot of charm, but it is the least modern stadium an NFL game will have been played in decades. And
Well, it's like playing an NFL game at the old Wembley, you could say. That kind of thing.
Yeah,
it is.
It is.
Well. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Now, when I was at that Champions League final, and stop me if I've told you this story before, Sam, but I was there and they were filming a season of the TV show Homeland in Berlin at the time. So I was sat right by the stars of Homeland, and the Olympic Stadium in Berlin is quite grubby. Like a lot of old stadiums, it's kind of grubby. And Claire Danes was there in the stadium in bare feet. I assume she'd never been to a football match before, wore high heels, and was like, this is uncomfortable on all this concrete, and must have just taken them off. I would not let my flesh touch the floor of the Berlin Olympic Stadium. I'm sorry. Claire Danes, that was a massive error. The facilities inside that stadium are really subpar. Now, we had to do our corporate hospitality stuff near the stadium because you can't really do it inside. It's a lovely old stadium, but it's pretty decrepit. I am amazed that the NFL wants to play that. I get why they want to play in Berlin, one of the most iconic cities in the world, and selling it to Americans. It's easier to sell Berlin, I think, than Munich or Frankfurt, even though Frankfurt is full of Americans and full of American banks. Berlin has this different historical cachet. That stadium, I'm surprised that it passed the inspections that the NFL made. I'm not convinced they'll be back in Berlin. I hope for the sake of German fans that something gets sorted so that they can go back to multiple games, because we know that they deserve it. And Sam, can I have a moan now, please, as well as moaning about the stadium? All right. Here's what will happen. Here's like a little. I'm going to assume people who are listening to this are not listening to it after the game. What we're going to hear is how incredible the German fans are, how much noise they make, the atmosphere in the stadium, the atmosphere in Berlin, all around the game. Well, yeah, I'm sure it's going to be great. But if they had 42 games like we've had in the UK, then maybe they'd be a bit more blasé. I feel like when people are talking about how great the atmosphere at these games are in Germany, they're using it as a bit of a stick to beat the UK fans with. And the UK fans have put up with so much and have spent so much money that I don't like the implication when all of that comes out. I'll put the UK fans up against the German fans any day of the week. They're brilliant. But we are going to hear about the German fans like they are supernatural almost after Sunday's game. You know, they'll be like, oh, when they were singing along to, I don't know, Country Roads or whatever. And I'll be like, we see this. We see this. Let's give the UK fans some credit as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, one thing that I agree with you, where it would be nice to have a settled stadium, especially in terms of branding and everything for the NFL. But I think what people do like about the German fact, obviously, because you've got so many stadiums with 50,000 capacity in Germany, you can move it around. I think that's what the NFL really is trying.
Yeah, but you could do that. Yeah. You could do that here. You could go and play at Murrayfield. You could play at Old Trafford. You know, there are other places.
You can play in Cardiff. You could play many places.
There are places, but they've got. I mean, they're onto a good thing in London, and it's easier to sell London to the Americans. And now with Tottenham Stadium being the only NFL spec stadium in the country, it makes sense for the NFL to have their contract with them. And obviously, the Jags is a separate thing, but I hope that a German stadium gets NFL spec'd out and it's like, right, this is us. Because obviously that's what they're doing in Madrid. That's what Real Madrid have done. They've got an NFL spec stadium. It's set up like Spurs, great kind of vision from Real Madrid, knowing, okay, if we basically have an NFL stadium, that is money in the bank every year. It's a lot of cost up front, but you're going to get the NFL coming back year on year. And I think it won't be long before there's 2 games a season in Madrid and hopefully two a season in Germany, because it seems mad to me that we've had 42 and they've had like a handful.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Colts actually become the first team to play in Germany twice, so that's quite an interesting thing there. What I'm looking forward to in this game is you got 2 teams that are really desperate to make a statement. And obviously it's a standalone window like this. This is the perfect opportunity for them to make a statement. Obviously the Colts lost in an ugly way on Sunday. 5 turnovers from Daniel Jones. It was bad. So they wanted to put that right. And then the Falcons, they know they're better than the 3-5 record they had. Like they know they're better than that. Here's a stat for you, Ben. Right, this is for this game, right? This is the first game since week 10 of 2002 to feature 2 players on opposing teams with at least 1,000 yards from scrimmage in 10 going out to 10 games.
Wow.
The last time that happened was in 2002, which was before I was born. That's how long ago this was. It was between 2 Hall of Fame running backs. Can you guess who those running backs were in 2002?
Oh, okay. 02. LaDainian Tomlinson and Marshall Falk?
Yeah, spot on.
Wow.
Yes,
because I don't remember the game. I'm just thinking who at that time would have been. Oh, I'm amazing. I'm really pleased with that, Sam. I'm so pleased you asked.
Oh, there you go again. So yeah, so it's the first game with 2 opposing players of at least 1,000 yards scrimmage. Within the 9 games, first 9 games of the season, which again is just crazy. And Jonathan Taylor and Bill Robinson are just 2 of the best players in the league.
Absolutely.
Alone, let alone at the running back position. We mentioned Sauce Gardner. The interesting thing is whether he will play or not. Obviously, he'll become the first player to play in both the UK and Germany in the same season. If the Colts decided to let him go, he was a full participant in practice. He is in the concussion protocol though, so there we'll see what happens. The Colts fly out today, so we'll see what happens. They might not want to risk him with a concussion flying and things. We'll see what happens there. We'll have some news about that today. But if he does play, how long before that's mentioned in the broadcast? Maybe 10 minutes. That will 100% come up in the broadcast. But on a serious note, I'm really interested to see what version of the Falcons turn up, because this offense has looked electric at points and then has also laid eggs against the Panthers, the Niners, the Dolphins. Those 3 games, they were terrible. Against the Dolphins they had Kirk Cousins, so you can sort of forgive them there. But kickers have majorly let them down as well. If they had a good kicker, they'd have a winning record. That's the other thing with the Falcons, that you can sort of they've just last week missed kick cost them against the Patriots. They should have beaten the Patriots last week, and it's happened a couple of times as well. I mean, this defense has been incredible for a lot of the season, but it's gone quiet when the offense has needed them to make a play at points. It's one of the best pass defenses in the league. It's got loads of young talent on it, obviously led by those 2 first-round edge rushers who had a really good game against the Patriots last week. But this team, I think the Falcons, they can beat anyone, especially in their own building. I genuinely think they can beat anyone. We saw that with the Buffalo game, but I also think they can lose to anyone as well. This team should have a win record. They've got one of the best running backs in football, top receiver, a young quarterback in Michael Penix who really intrigues me, and an offensive line that is injured but still playing well despite the injuries. And I like Raheem Morris as well. They're just so inconsistent. They're like the opposite. They're the exact opposite of the Colts. You know what the Colts are exactly. The Falcons, week to week, will surprise you, but they should be good. And obviously, they've been very unlucky so far this season.
I'd go a step further from what you said. I mean, not just they can lose to anyone, they can beat anyone. They can beat anyone comfortably, and they can get hammered by anyone. Like the variation in outcomes for a Falcons game seems to be much wider than any other team. Like when they're bad, they are absolutely unwatchably atrocious, and when they're good, they are absolutely scintillating. They've got to figure out if they can actually put it together for a few weeks in a row. I'm curious to see who would be damaged most by a loss. Now, obviously, the Falcons are more at risk because every game they lose, they're falling further out of playoff contention. But if they lose, it'll look like their season might be over, and they could be in absolute desperation mode. The Colts, meanwhile, obviously they're cruising to the playoffs. If they lose 2 in a row and
Going into
Daniel
the
Jones
bye,
has a
like,
bad
yeah.
game, all of a sudden it's like, we know this Daniel Jones. This is the one we saw dozens of times in New York. That maybe he had a good, couple of months. And maybe now everyone remembers Daniel Jones. People know how to play against Daniel Jones. I think there will be absolute panic if the Colts lose this game. Because not only will it be, okay, that's 2 games in a row, and maybe Daniel Jones has been bad 2 games in a row, but we've just mortgaged our future. We've just made it out that, okay, well, we are in Super Bowl mode right now, and look at these teams we're losing to. We're losing to teams that are not expected to be challenging for the Super Bowl. So it feels like a must-win game for both teams. That it's going to be an absolute disaster for one of these teams.
If the Falcons lose again at 6 losses, probably is their season over. They probably have to win out, maybe lose one more game. If the Falcons win this game, they've got a really favourable schedule coming up, especially the next 4 games. They could easily be 7-5, 8-5 in a few weeks' time. Like, it's a high stakes game for both teams, and that should be great viewing. Right, let's predict this game. Before we go ahead, predict the rest of Week 10. Obviously, the Colts are the home team in this matchup, becoming the first team to play twice in Germany, as I said. They're 6.5-point favourites in this game, which, again, for a neutral field, is quite a big spread. Which way are you going, Ben?
I'm going with the Colts. I just don't trust the Falcons enough. I could see the Falcons winning this by about 14 points. But
yeah, that's the thing.
Would I have the confidence to put money on that? No, I'd put the money on the Colts to cover 6.5.
Do you know what? I feel, as I said, I think for a neutral game, I think the spread's a bit too big for me. So I'm going to go for the Falcons to come within 6. Do I think Indy will probably win? Probably in the end. Maybe the Falcons have another missed kick, and they lose by 3 or something. I'm gonna pick the Falcons to come within the 6 just because I feel like they can make it close. I don't know who wins the game. Probably the Colts, but I think it'll be a close game with how much it means to both teams. So I'll go the other way to you. There. Let's get on to previewing and predicting the rest of the Week 10 slate. We may as well go straight in with it. I'll do a scores update before we start. Last week was a poor week for me. Both Andrew Gamble and I went 5-9 for the week. That's putting back below 500 at 66 and 67. The guest team remains 6 games back on me at 60 and 73. Last time you came on, Ben, it was much better than your 4-11 showing in week 3. In week 7, you were actually the first and only guest to beat me so far this season.
Wow! Oh, I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah, so but so that was majorly impressive for you. So yeah, you got the guest team back with it. You're back within 6 games with me. So that was pretty good. We'll start with Thursday night football. Obviously it's tonight. You're probably listening to this the morning afterwards, depending on where this comes out. But we'll talk about this one briefly. The Broncos, fresh off another close win, they host the Raiders, who lost in overtime to the Jags on Sunday. The Broncos are 9.5-point favourites here. It's in Denver. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident about the Broncos because I've got so little faith in the Raiders. I think
so disappointing.
Some of the
one of the most disappointing teams, and yeah, so disappointing.
Yeah, I had not so much playoff expectations from them, but I thought they were going to be a tough team all season, and they have just been pushed around and they have looked poor, and it's not working out. Geno Smith has been pretty tragic, really. I'm not super high on the Broncos, and I did see a graph showing how nobody is missing players with catchable balls than Bo Nix. Bo Nix has a ceiling, and the Broncos need to make sure that they are not trying to get him to play above that ceiling, because I think bad things will happen. I think they'll come through. I think they'll come through this one, though. What's the line? You say 8.5?
9.5.
9.5. No, I'll still take Denver. I'll still take Denver at home against this bad Raiders team.
Normally, I would go for the away team on a Thursday night if it's that, because normally the Thursday night games are closer. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't. This Raiders team are just horrible. So yeah, give me Denver here because I just I think it's a great spot for them to go to 8-2, which is crazy for them. It's pretty much a playoff berth secured already. Right, we're going to the 6 p.m. slate. Now we'll start with an all NFC South tie. The 5-4 Carolina Panthers host the 1-8 Saints. The Panthers are 5.5-point favorites in this one. Obviously, they've got this massive win streak now. In Carolina, that who would have thought that a couple of weeks ago? And New Orleans did not look very good at all last week with Tyler Shuck at quarterback, 5.5 points.
I'm going Panthers here in part because of Tyler Shuck, who I don't have faith in. The Panthers, they could easily be atrocious this week. They are a very average team, and that's fair enough. It's not like they've got a crazy record. They're a very average team. The Saints are a bad team. The Saints are going to have games at home where they play decent. They've been pretty bad away from home. I'm not ready to believe in the Panthers, but I'm ready to believe that they're going to cover against the Saints.
I'll go for Carolina as well, just because Gio Evero's got a defense playing really well. Like, it was one of the worst in
nice.
NFL history, like last year, and it was for the first couple of weeks. It was terrible, but then something clicked, and about three or 4 weeks in, and then since then they've been really good. They've had a couple of really good games strung together now, and yeah, they're looking really good. Obviously, the biggest of them all was against Green Bay on Sunday, and yeah, I just feel like for a rookie quarterback as well, the Saints will want to run the ball. They'll be able to run the ball against Derek Brown. He's one of the best run stoppers in the league. But for me, yeah, this screams Panthers win, but it's a division game, so you never know. I'll go for Carolina though. We'll go with your Chicago Bears now, Ben. 5-3. Crazy scenes last week to win that game again, to carry on their winning streak now. 4.5 points. The Bears are favoured over the banged up New York Giants. How do you see this one going?
So my edge rush Drew lock of the week was the Bears to cover, although the line when we did it was 3.5.
Wow, yeah.
I don't know where that extra point has come from in the last
2
24
points,
hours.
5.5. It's 5.5.
Oh yeah, no, sorry, yeah. 3.5.
So,
It was 3.5 when I did it, and then it was 4.5 this morning, and it's 5.5 now. Yeah, sorry, I
yeah.
don't know where those points have come from, because it's not like the Giants have traded away a great player. The Bears brought in a rotational pass rusher. That's it. So I don't think it's anything from the trade. 5.5 feels more realistic. I think the Bears are like a touchdown better than the Giants if it's at Soldier Field, because the Giants don't have their impact players. They're going to be feisty. They're a tough out, but I think the Bears will just kind of grind out a win. They're running the ball well, and I think they should cover.
Give me Chicago here too. I completely agree with you there. Or I'll go to a string of games that the away team are favoured in. Now we'll start in Houston. Obviously an all AFC South tie. The Texans started the week as favourites for this game, but then CJ Stroud was ruled out for a concussion. Davis Mills will start after coming in towards the end of the game last week, and he didn't look bad against a great Broncos defense. But the Jags are now favoured by 1.5 points. And again for the Jags, just about winning against the Raiders last week. Yeah, again, this game, had they had CJ Stroud, the Texans might have thought might have a chance to start a run here. That has really hurt them. And for the Jags, again, we're a team that's not looked great the last couple of weeks, that's really happened at a great time for the Jags, doesn't it? Again, 1.5 points is basically a pick 'em. Which way are you going here?
I'm going with the Jags. It's the Davis Mills factor that puts me that way. 37.5 is the points total for this game, which is the lowest, quite comfortably the lowest of the weekend. This is not going to be, I don't think, a particularly entertaining game. Famous last words. I hope it's good. Yeah, Jags.
Screw it. I'm going for the Texans. I love that defense. Again, I've saying for weeks it's the best defense in the NFL. I do think it is the best defense in the NFL. They're getting so much pressure. They're generating so much pressure right now, and the guy who cannot handle pressure is Trevor Lawrence. I think there are going to be some mistakes in there. So give me the Texans here.
I feel there's going to be a lot of picks in this game. I feel that we could easily see 2 from Trevor Lawrence and like 3 from Davis Mills.
Yeah, absolutely. go over to an all AFC East game now. Lots of division games this week actually, which is really interesting. Tons of them, which it's cool because it means they're all going to be really competitive. Maybe not this one. The Dolphins host the Bills. The Bills have won the last 7 straight against the Dolphins, and because of that, they're 9.5-point favourites going into Miami as well, which is crazy. This one's available on Sky Sports Plus as well as DAZN. Yeah, I mean, the Bills have dominated the Dolphins. It's just whether they win by 10 points or not.
Yeah, I don't love this line. I'm still kind of I picked against Miami a couple of weeks ago in that game they won, and it's haunted me. But no, I'll go Buffalo here because I feel like Miami are kind of checked out.
Yeah, I'll go with Buffalo as well. Dolphins can't really stop the run. James Cook's gonna get a lot of the ball if he's got a little bit of an ankle thing, but if he's healthy, he'll kill the Dolphins defense. And the Dolphins showed their first signs of quitting on Mike McDaniel in Thursday Night Football last week. The second half after the turnovers, they just completely quit. So we'll see what happens there. The Channel 5 game on Sunday sees the Vikings and JJ McCarthy host the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. This one, for a game that has a team with 3 wins against a team with 4 wins, this game's actually really fun because obviously both quarterbacks are now back in the lineup. The Vikings looked really good last week. JJ McCarthy had the best game of his NFL career so far, getting the most complete game certainly. And the Ravens are back. Yeah, the defense is looking really good the last couple of weeks. They've got a mini bye and they're 4.5-point favorites for a reason after making a couple moves in the last couple of weeks. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I think the Ravens are going to keep rolling. I like what I saw from Minnesota last week against Detroit, obviously, and I think they're going to be in contention because that they're only 1 game off the lead in effect, or 1.5 games off the lead of the NFC North, which is obviously a crazy division. But I'm going to go Baltimore to cover here on the road.
I'm going to go Minnesota. I think Baltimore might win, but on the road, 4.5 points is a big spread. And Brian Flores has done really well against Lamar Jackson previously. I think that's something to watch. He's
Yep.
There's one game where he just blitzed the hell out of Lamar Jackson. I was on Thursday night when he was in Miami, and yeah, the Dolphins somehow won that game, and the Ravens had like 7 or 8 wins at that point. It was I think that's something to watch. And again, the Ravens' offensive line isn't very good, so if the Vikings can get pressure on Lamar Jackson, I'm interested to see how that goes. I think the Ravens might win, probably will win, but I think this will be a close one because Brian Flores' defense came to play last week, and Andrew Van Ginkel being back was a big reason. Let's go for Minnesota there. Right, the Suck Bowl between the Jets and the Browns. Both teams coming off a bye. Obviously, the 1-7 Jets against the 2-6 Browns. To start the week, the Jets were favored by 2.5 points. They're now 2.5-point underdogs to the Browns after all the moves, which just shows how depleted that defense is now after moving on from the 2 stars. Yeah, so the Browns are 2.5-point favorites going to New York. How do you see this one going?
I wish I'd had Cleveland before trade deadline. I'm still going to go with the Browns, though, even with the 2.5-point advantage. I mean, a lot of road favorites this week. It feels like this New York team is bad. I don't love the Browns, obviously, but I think they got enough to pull out a win.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for Cleveland too. I just feel like they're a better team. They're much better coach than the Jets as well, and that's the thing in these kind of games. Like the Browns' defense will get them probably 5 wins alone this season. Even with how bad the offense is, they can run the football and they can play defense. That's just fundamentally what you need to do to win games. So even if they can try to lose, the Browns will win multiple games because they're built in the right way. They just got a terrible quarterback, O-line and receiver situation. Really, if they had a decent offense, the Browns would be really good. And that's the real sad thing about it. The way they really messed up that situation. And the main game in the Sky early window sees the Bucks off a bye host the Patriots 6-2 team against 7-2 team. The Bucks are 2.5-point favorites in this one. This one should be fun, shouldn't it?
Yeah, this is easily the best game of that window. I really want to see the Bucks get back to how they were earlier in the season. They've looked a bit shaky. I think Baker's not completely fit. To the point where I'm going to go with the Patriots. I mean, when you're 2.5-point favorites at home, that means the bookies feel like this could go any way. This is a pick 'em. I'm gonna go Patriots.
I'll go the other way, just because the Bucks go on for bye. I just thought that could maybe just about the rest could have done them the world of good, especially for the
Yeah.
receivers who have been injured the whole time as well. The rest could have done them a world of good. Because Mika Ibuka wasn't quite right in the game before the bye. So yeah, give me Tampa here, but again, I'm not confident on that. I'll go on to the late slate now. We'll start with the game that's exclusively to Sky Sports Plus. The main game on Sky is also available on DAZN. So the blackout game sees the Seahawks host the Cardinals. The Seahawks are 6.5-point favorites in this one. Obviously, the Cardinals coming off a win on Monday Night Football, and then the Seahawks coming off a resounding win on Sunday Night Football this week as well. Division games, so anything could happen, but you'd like to think Seattle could cover the 6.5 point spread, wouldn't you?
Yeah, the Cardinals seem to be able to do what they wanted against Dallas, but lots of teams have done that against Dallas because that defense has been so shaky. So I'm not going to read too much into it. So yeah, I'm taking Seattle with the points here.
Me too. And then the feature game in the late window is available everywhere. Sky Sports, on 5 Action, on DAZN as well. The 6-2 Rams head to San Francisco to face the 6-3 Niners. Obviously, it's the second time they met. The Niners got the Rams number on Thursday Night Football about 5 weeks ago. The Rams are favoured going into San Francisco here, 4.5-point favourites, despite Sean McVay's really poor record against Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting thing to watch. Again, every week Brock Purdy starts the week limited in practice. We have no idea who's going to play at quarterback. I don't think it really matters though, to be honest with you, because yeah, this is an interesting one. How do you see this one going, Ben?
Yeah, I think Brock Purdy and Mac Jones might just be the same person. I like the Rams to win, but I like the 49ers to cover. I think the Rams are going to squeak past them. I know the 49ers have got their injury problems, but I don't like the idea of a 4.5-point road favorite against a team with a winning record in a divisional game. So I'll take the 49ers to cover.
I'm going for the Rams, purely just because we're starting to see that Niners defense looking banged up now. Like the first 4 or 5 weeks without Nick Bosa, they still looked fine. First couple of weeks after losing Fred Warner, they still looked fine. The last couple, 2 weeks or so, they've not looked great. And the Rams are as difficult as anyone to defend right now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go for the Rams, but I'm not confident on that whatsoever. And then the final game in the late window sees the Commanders host the Lions. This one obviously a rematch of the divisional round playoff game last year. But it's Son's Jane Daniels, who is out of a dislocated elbow. Horrible to see him go down like that on Monday.
Elbows should not move like that. I'm no doctor, but
I know,
elbows should not move like that.
No, it's horrible seeing that happen to him. So yeah, it's Marcus Mariota against the Lions. Because of that, the Lions are 8.5-point favorites going into Washington. So it's actually a similar spread to what it was in the playoffs, which is funny. Obviously, that was in Detroit, but yeah, 2 teams going in completely different directions. This one, isn't it?
Yeah, the Commanders have not been great. The way that Marcus Mariota has played at times when he's had to come in has been pretty impressive. He's got a full understanding of that offense. He does everything that they need him to do. I think the Lions are going to win, but I think Washington can cover 8.5.
I'm gonna go for the Lions. I just think they're going to win both battles at the line of scrimmage, because the Commanders aren't great on either line. Again, injuries have been a factor. The pass rush hasn't been what they hoped it would be when they went to go and get Von Miller. And then the Lions just have that high-powered offense, and the Commanders are terrible on defense and lost their best corner, Marshawn Lattimore, to an ACL this on the Sunday night game as well. Yeah, I just thought that it's gonna be too much for a Washington defense that's already struggling. So yeah, so give me Detroit here.
I wonder what a Commanders fan would have said to you if you'd said, right, in the regular season, you're going to be home against Detroit, and Detroit's going to be 8.5-point favorites. I think they would have thought you were crazy if you'd said that to them at the start of the season. But it just shows
Yeah.
that either last season was a mirage because everything seemed to go right. Everything that could have gone right for Washington last year went right. And
Well, they
this
stayed
year it's
healthy the
been
whole
the
time.
opposite.
Yeah, they stayed healthy the whole time. And the offense isn't bad. Like even with Marcus Mariota, they will score points. They got
Yeah.
the run game. The problem has been the defense, and the difference is that they haven't got the quarterback who, because Jaden Daniels hasn't been healthy all year, they haven't got the dual threat Jaden Daniels. They've just had Jaden Daniels in the pocket,
Yeah.
and that's been the issue because they're not able to run the football as well because Jaden Daniels hasn't been running the football as well. And it's just all not been. And they didn't invest in the defense pretty much at all. And that was, they just outscored opponents last year. It's much harder to outscore opponents with this version of your offense is really injured.
Yeah.
Again, they've had McLaurin and Debo Samuel in and out of the lineup all season as well. They've both missed multiple games at different times. So it's just been really unlucky for them more than anything. Sunday Night Football, this one should be really good. You see the 6-3 Chargers host the 5-3 Steelers. Obviously, the Chargers, that terrible injury luck has continued, losing Joe Alt for the season, but they are still 3.5-point favourites over the Steelers. They've looked really good in recent weeks. Even against the Packers, Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf had a game. It's just the defense couldn't do anything. Then the defense stepped up and the defense killed. Like they did well against Jonathan Taylor to an extent. They eliminated Tyler Warren, and they got 5 turnovers and sat Daniel Jones on multiple occasions. Like that's the Pittsburgh defense that we've been wanting to see the whole time. But they are underdogs in this game against the Chargers, 3.5-point favorites. 2 really good primetime games to finish the week, which we didn't have last week.
Yeah. The thing is, as well, is that although Pittsburgh's on the road, half that stadium is going to be Steelers fans. Minimum.
Yeah.
Half that stadium. So it won't feel too much like a road game in terms of the atmosphere in the stadium, but there is plenty that goes into it. It's a long trip. It's all this other stuff. 3.5 is the line, yeah. I gotta say this one has been causing me some angst, Sam. I'm gonna go with the Chargers, but I'm not super confident. Yeah, okay, Chargers. I don't want to overthink it now.
Everything's telling me go Pittsburgh. Everything. The only thing that is stopping me from doing that is the inconsistency of this defense.
Yeah.
That is the only thing. It's crazy. It's the highest paid defense in the entire NFL. It's not playing to that level. It has had games where it has played to that level, like the Colts game, like the Vikings game in Dublin. They played to that level in that game. That's just 2 or 3 games they've played to that level. I think it was the Bengals game they played that to that level, the first one. As well, like no, it wasn't. Either way, right? They've played 2 or 3 really good games. The rest of the games they've surrendered points.
Yeah.
And their issue has been tackling the middle of the field. We've seen Tucker Kraft have big games against them. Obviously, they couldn't handle the Bengals receivers by any means on Thursday Night Football a couple of weeks ago either. So we're interested to see how these Chargers weapons, who are run off the catch guys, a lot of them fare against the Steelers offense. But the reason why I'm picking Pittsburgh, despite all that, is because with this Chargers offensive line, I just feel like they're going to get so much pressure that they'll win this one ugly. More than anything, that's why I'm going with Pittsburgh. But I'm not confident because again, they have struggled to bring down players in the middle of the field. So that's a really interesting thing to watch. And then Monday Night Football sees the Eagles go into Green Bay, another playoff rematch this week. Obviously, they played twice last year, the Brazil game, and then in the World Cup round as well. The Eagles are off a bye, heading to Green Bay. The Packers are favourites by 2.5 points. So again, it's not much between the two teams, as you said. Lambeau Field night game should be really fun. This one is the game of the week by far. I have no idea who's going to win it. I really have no idea.
I don't think the bookies do either. Like, I'm trying not to read too much into the Packers' performance against the Panthers because I think it'll be difficult for them to play as badly as that 2 games in a row. There was a pass that Jordan Love should have had picked off where he was kind of scrambling, threw across his body, and the only player anywhere near was a Panthers player in the end zone who just managed to
Yeah.
somehow drop it. It's one of the worst throws by a good quarterback you'll see this season. So there were weird things that were going on in that game. I'm still going to take the Eagles though. 2.5 points. I think they'll probably win. I think the Eagles probably will win. But I don't feel confident that they'll, say lose by 1 and I'll still be correct. But okay, yeah, Eagles against that 2.5 for the Packers.
I'll go for the Eagles as well. I just feel like the Eagles offer bye as underdogs. I feel like that's too good not to take,
That's bait.
especially as the Packers have been so inconsistent as well. I felt obviously the Eagles have been inconsistent as well, but the thing with the Packers, the defense has been great the last couple of weeks. This offense, week to week, I have no idea what the hell's going to turn up. Jordan Love, again, week to week, I have no idea what version of Jordan Love's going to turn up. I have an idea what the Eagles are, even if their offensive line is not as good as it has been. I know what the Eagles are, and I know they're going to play up to their opponent like they do a lot of the time as well. So give me Philadelphia here. Again, to just come within 2 points. Off a bye as well. But again, this should be a really good game, and hopefully we start to see both teams really get into their groove, because these 2 teams should probably be the 2 best teams in the NFC, and they've not really performed to that level so far this year. So it's a really, really interesting game on Monday night. And then the 4 teams on the bye are the Titans, the Bengals, the Chiefs, and the Cowboys. Right, that'll do it for today's episode. A big thank you to Ben for joining me. It's always brilliant to have you on, mate. Can you let the listeners know where they can find your work?
Generally tweets from Ben on Twitter/X. You will find me on the Nat Coombs Show, the Edge Rush Show, particularly the midweek kind of like predictions and betting guide. College Days podcast, which has its own dedicated feed. It's on the it's on the Nat Coombs Show feed as well, but you get it earlier on the dedicated College Days feed. That's a show I do with Dom Corbett. So if you want more of me in your life, that is definitely the best way to do it.
Absolutely. And if you enjoyed today's show, please consider leaving us a quick rating or review. Really helps more NFL fans here in the UK find the pod. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well, so you never miss any more of our uploads. Fun fact: most of the YouTube viewers still aren't actually subscribed. So if you are enjoying the show, if you have enjoyed listening to it, then tap the button. Really doesn't make a difference, because it comes up on your feed every time. Guaranteed. When we upload it, obviously if you get hit notification as well, you'll get it straight to your phone as well. It will make a big difference. I'll be back next week to look ahead to the league's first ever game in Madrid and to predict all the week 11's games. But until then, enjoy your Sunday, enjoy the Berlin game, enjoy the extra window, and I'll see you next time on the Full 10 Yards NFL podcast.